What's going on, everybody? B. Scott, I'm here with
Godzilla.
And on today's show, we got the wide receiver ranks. These are our top 12 wide receivers ahead of the 2021 fantasy football season.
Yeah, you already know what it is. All your wide receiver ones right here, locked and loaded.
Yeah, so keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs.
You already know. Drop the logo.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. B. Scott and GOD here, and we're going over the wide receiver ranks. These are our top 12 wide receivers out of the 2021 NFL season. So, before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff. Comment. If there's a receiver that's not in our top 12 that you disagree with, drop us a comment. Let us know.
There's probably going to be a few, but I think that we nailed this down to who would you pick as your number one wide receiver, and I'm absolutely fine with this.
Yeah, of course. So, drop a comment if you disagree or anything else. So, the first receiver we're going to be looking at, Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Keenan Allen. We got him right here as our wide receiver 12. Now, honestly, I've seen him in some people's ranks as high as number 6, number 7, creeping into that 10 spot. The reason I got him here, he didn't finish with 1,000 yards last year in 14 games. Now, 2 games. He did miss some time with injuries, and he missed 2 complete games. So, 2 games with low snap shares and then missed 2 games. So, essentially almost 4 games missed, but still finished with a good fantasy points per game, 13.9, I want to say. He was under 1,000 yards, 140 targets, 8 touchdowns. Obviously, Justin Herbert, he played with them last year. How much more could you expect out of Keenan Allen here to say that he's going to be able to creep into that top 5, 6 wide receiver mark?
Yeah, 12 was perfectly fine for Keenan Allen to me because I look at a guy who has finished in the top 10 or, you know what I'm saying, in the top 12, 15 players consistently in his career. So I think that at this point, being in that kind of range is his floor right now. You know what I mean? We're looking at the biggest situation with Keenan Allen is like, what can be his ceiling?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we don't really know. You're looking at the yards per carry. I mean, the yards per catch in the last 2 seasons has gone down significantly, but you're looking at a second-year quarterback in Justin Herbert who just came out of nowhere and lit the league up last year. Yes, Keenan Allen did miss a couple games last year, but also they had Dr. Kevorkian inside there, so you never know what it is. But to be real with you, I think that it's a pretty safe floor to have him ranked there at the 12. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you could probably take. There's Terry McLaurin, those guys, you know what I'm saying, Cooper Kupp, you know what I mean? There's the Thielens, all these guys in this bunch, but, you know, just to be that consistent, I would take him at the end of the 3rd round, you know what I'm saying? If I can get a guy like that who has been consistent year to year. And the differential from points from 15 to 12 is really not that far, you know what I mean? You look at last year, even without 1,000 yards, he still finished at number 14, and like you said, finished 13.9 fantasy points per game. So that is a guy that I'm looking to be my wide receiver 1 if he had to be. And at the number 11, obviously no other than Amari Cooper. We look at last year, you know, what he was on pace for was absolutely ridiculous. And there's been a lot of expectation in the last couple of seasons. He was traded there with a 1st-round pick. And, you know, that expectation is really high. You've seen him and Dak, you know, immediately get on a great tandem, you know what I'm saying, as a 1-2 punch. So, you know, just looking at it right now, I mean, CeeDee Lamb is breathing up his back a little bit. But, you know, you got a guy named Ben DiNucci last year who was the quarterback last year and the Red Rocket. And he still finished the number 16 wide receiver, averaging 11.9 fantasy points per game. But I think that would be much more in the season to come.
Yeah, of course. Amari Cooper, 2019, his first season under Dallas, career year in yards, in touchdowns, on only 119 targets. Last season, first 5 weeks, with Dak Prescott, 55 targets, 39 receptions. You know what I mean? So, and Dak got hurt in the middle of the 5th game. So, I think you pace that out, you're looking at Cooper having probably 150, 160 targets here, and a potential of 8+ touchdowns, a potential of 1,200+ yards.
Yeah.
So, for me, Cooper's a huge value considering that he's falling right now because, yes, he did have off-season ankle surgery. He's off the PUP list. He's starting to practice, get reacclimated. CeeDee Lamb, he's a great receiver. I'm not sitting here saying he's not. But I still can't just hand CeeDee Lamb the keys and say, oh, Amari Cooper's over.
Yeah,
you know, I think you're going to get a lot of value here with Amari Cooper. And at the end of the day, these 2 receivers possibly could finish very similar to each other anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's a lot of guys that's right there outside of the 12 in our rankings that will probably come out there and slap you in the face. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're going to be ranked between the 20 and the 12. I mean, 13 pick. So
yeah,
I mean, that is yet to be seen from CeeDee Lamb, but Amari Cooper fits this bill completely.
Yeah, of course. I love Amari Cooper here at the 11th wide receiver where we got him projected.
Period.
Mike Evans, our wide receiver 10. Last season, finished the wide receiver 10. 70 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Now, can you see him doing so much better than last year? Not necessarily, but I think the production's going to be there. The red zone targets, 4th in the league with 19. You know he's got a great rapport with Tom Brady already. You've seen it throughout the season. And he played last year through a little bit of injuries. So I think the potential for him to just be right in this 10 spot is almost surefire. And Tom Brady, albeit, is saying that he has something to prove. Not necessarily, but he does. He wants a perfect season. That's the one thing he doesn't hold. That's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are shooting for. Everything points to me that Mike Evans is going to still be productive this season. I personally have been in the spot where I've doubted him for many years. Where is he going to still be here? Is he still going to be here? And he's always there. So I do like Mike Evans here at the 10 spot.
Yeah, me too. You talk about consistency. 7+ seasons with 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Great touchdown threat. Most top 5 in air yards thrown. And you look at last year, what we're calling Brady punts. Tom Brady wants to hit Mike Evans, and it is what it is. Outside of him trying to force the ball to Antonio Brown and kind of like getting Scotty Miller out of the offense a little bit, you know what I mean? Tyler Johnson coming for plays. Godwin's role is always going to be there. I think this is an incredible fit for a guy. You look at before this season, he didn't have no targets in New England. Everybody thought Tom Brady was dead, and then you come out here with all these guys and go win the Super Bowl. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. This is the second year in that system, and I can expect a lot more here. I really do. I'm thinking like 11 to 1,200 yards, probably around 10 touchdown mark. I like him as my wide receiver 1 at the 10 spot. You know what I mean? All day long. Period. Tampa Bay.
Allen Robinson, our number 9 wide receiver. Pretty safe to say, I think he sees an uptick here. Last season finished as the wide receiver 12 with Mitch Trubisky, man.
Yeah, son of a Mitch.
I'm telling you. Come on. But this season, Justin Fields or Andy Dalton, both better options than Mitch Trubisky. We'll see when Justin Fields gets his opportunity to start, possibly week 1, honestly, if he keeps playing like he did in the first week of the preseason. But Allen Robinson, last season, 4th in receptions, 3rd in targets, 8th in yards, 4th in red zone targets. All these numbers add up to Allen Robinson actually having a better season than last season. And he had a pretty decent year, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, over 100 catches. So I like Allen Robinson here to finish inside the top 10 with better quarterback play and a strength schedule that's middle of the pack.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, if we're talking about these Dallas Cowboy receivers who finished, 16 and 20 or at that position or whatever, Andy Dalton was part of that team. You know what I'm saying? He was part of that process. So, whether you like it or not, it is an upgrade at the quarterback position. And you think about a team last year who could not produce any 20-plus yard big plays down the field or make any kind of playmaking ability whatsoever at the quarterback position. Now you got, Andy Dalton and this kid who's an absolute monster. I'm telling you, he's going to come in here and rock it. Who's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college history. I mean, it just spells explosion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really like him here at the 9 spot. And you look at the strength of schedule, 17 is not really bad. You know what I'm saying? He finished number 12 last year with terrible play, 13.2 fantasy points per game last year. And I think that it'll be a lot higher this year. I think there's a lot left in the tank in Allen Robinson, and we're going to see it at Soldier Field this year.
Yeah. Justin Jefferson, our number 8 wide receiver. This is a guy that came out and had an outstanding rookie year. Yeah. 88 receptions, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. On the back of finishing number 31 in red zone targets last season with 14. There's some improvement that could be had there in the touchdown department. Now, also, weeks 1 through 3, he was barely even acclimated to the offense. 4 games that he had last season in which he had under 75% snap share. In those 4 games, only 14 targets. So he had 121 targets in the other 12 games. That paced him out, honestly, to put him at like 1,600 yards based on last season's production, 15.9 yards per reception. He's set to be very, very good this season. Yeah, you hope the touchdown upside upticks, and guess what? That puts him inside the top 5s at wide receiver. We have him at the 8 spot. Pretty safe to say this is where he is. Yeah. He did have the AC joint sprain in his shoulder. He'll probably have to deal with that, honestly, early on in the season, but I think it's something he can overcome, and I think he's going to have a great season this year.
Yeah, you look at the work as as a rookie, arguably the best rookie receiver in history. You know what I'm saying? He put up really dumb numbers. So you look at the 14.4 fantasy points per game last year, tied with DK and Hopkins last year. That's just coming in the game and putting yourself with elite competition. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And I think we are all screaming encore here. You know what I mean? There's nothing that's going to be able to stop him here. It's another year where Adam Thielen gets a little bit older. Maybe he's still a viable red zone target. Or maybe Justin Jefferson is now also a red zone target. So there's nothing but upside but picking him here. The AC joint thing, we'll see what happens with that. But it doesn't look to be that serious. So, you know what I mean? This is a guy that could probably win you leagues, to be honest with you, because he did for a lot of people last year.
DeAndre Hopkins, our number 7 wide receiver here. Honestly, he's down a couple spots this season. Last year, you saw the yards per reception, it was kind of down. But guess what? All the numbers were still there. Number 2 in receptions, yards, and targets. Only behind Stefon Diggs. So there's still a lot of value here with DeAndre Hopkins, and I think he's a very safe play. 7 games of 100-plus yards last season. Kyler Murray looking to improve that passing offense. So I love me some DeAndre Hopkins. We got him at the wide receiver 7 spot. Pretty safe play.
Yeah, very safe play to me. And looking at the top 12 guys that we got right now, number 8 strength of schedule on the season. So, You know what I mean? A guy to finish number 5 last year. Father Time has not caught up with this guy. I know he had a limited route tree last year, but you have these other guys in Rondale Moore who look pretty explosive in this first game of the preseason, and A.J. Green. And, these guys, they tell a story. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think that necessarily all this target share is just going to go to these other guys, but rather just open up Hopkins a little bit more. You know what I mean? So looking into these red zones and things like that where they didn't throw as much, I think there's a big possibility we could see him break over 10 touchdowns this year, and that's why I got him at 7.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Draft DeAndre Hopkins.
Period.
A.J. Brown, our number 6 wide receiver. Finished last season, wide receiver 11. 70 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. His target share could probably see a little bit of a boost here. They add Julio Jones. This is going to help A.J. Brown, in my opinion, to free up the field. Also, Derrick Henry. The offense is very efficient, especially under Tannehill. Last season, 10 of 14 games he played in, he had a touchdown in. That's great numbers. Very consistency. Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what you want in a consistent top 5 receiver. That's kind of the characteristics you look for. So for me, A.J. Brown at the number 6 spot, a lot of people with Julio Jones joining thinking, oh, it's a bad thing. I really don't think so. I think both these receivers could see 120, 130 targets here. And A.J. Brown, he only needs a few targets to take it to the house.
Yeah, of course. Looking at football the last 2 years, number 1 efficient wide receiver in football. So you think about it and you think about the strength of schedule. I mean, it's 24. They have the 24 strength of schedule. But the thing about this is, you can't load the box on a team. They also have this kid named Derrick Henry on this team. So, you add Julio Jones or whatever.
Yeah.
And the sky's the limit. You know what I'm saying? If you think that Calvin Ridley was just a monster all these years, you know what I mean? You realize the efficiency he has because Julio Jones is also on this team. You know what I mean? Also, you look at the fantasy points per game last year, 15.2. That's only behind Adams, Hill, Diggs, and Ridley.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This kid is ridiculous. You remember last season, he did miss a few games with the bone bruise in his knee, which has been corrected. So, this is a guy, we're starting to get into these echelon of players that can finish the number 1 wide receiver in football. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of people, before Julio signed to the team, thought that he would be the number 1 wide receiver and, has been scared off a little bit, but not me. I swear, if he's sitting there in the second round in that back end of the drafts, I'm taking him regardless.
Yeah, don't forget, there was another receiver last season, finished number 2 with only 135 targets, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So you don't need 170 targets to finish the wide receiver 1 overall.
Not if you're a monster.
Right. DK Metcalf, our wide receiver 5. 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns on 80 receptions, 129 targets last year. You could see him increase every single season. Going into the 3rd year, potential breakout to be that number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, Calvin Johnson-esque.
I'm telling you, I like DK Metcalf here. I think The ceiling is wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'm telling you. DK Metcalf, number 5. You know what I'm saying? Only reason why he is not ranked number 1 right now, which early on he was number 1 in my book, is because he's not Davante Adams in that situation.
Yeah.
DK is absolute monster. You look at, a lot of these guys in his top 5, the way that they finish, looking at Adams with the touchdowns and the route run, the separation that he can get, can ultimately put him as the wide receiver 1. You look at Tyreek Hill. A lot of that is like a lot of deep ball, a lot of touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? DK is one of these dual threat guys like Adams who can get the receptions and get the touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's not a lot of men who can guard this guy, period. And I think that, we all seen that footage last year that he just 101 yards or whatever caught Budda Baker.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be running to catch Davante Adams in his rankings this year.
Yeah, DK was a tale of two halves last season. First 8 weeks, on pace for 15 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, something like that. It was the back end he tailed off.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, you saw the whole offense kind of sputter. If they can maintain that first half season long, absolute wide receiver 1 possibility.
I'm telling you.
Calvin Ridley, our number 4 wide receiver. Last season, 90 receptions, almost 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns. No Julio Jones. He played pretty well when Julio wasn't there. The question mark, can he be the alpha number 1 dog and be able to take the reins there?
Yeah, see the top coverage.
But the numbers that he posted last season are all manageable numbers that I think he can have in this offense. I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to struggle as a football team under a new head coach. Mike Davis can be effective running the football. I mean, who knows what's going to happen here, but Calvin Ridley, I think, is a definite possibility to finish as the wide receiver 1.
I believe that too. You know what I'm saying? I think that, in thinking of the Atlanta Falcons offense, and, you really got to do your history and really look at it. I think this is a change in the guard. You know what I mean? When Roddy White was a dominant wide receiver over there, the wide receiver 1, and Julio Jones came in and then kind of took that role from him. And now we're seeing almost the same thing, you know what I'm saying, with Calvin Ridley. The thing that on this offense that's stopping him from being number 1 overall, just completely number 1 overall, is the running game. As you mentioned, Mike Davis last year, I think he had like under 700 yards, but he did have almost 400 yards receiving. Now, there has to be something there to keep the offense honest, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to take that edge off, maybe drop a player in the box, whatever. If they can get that kind of thing going on, sky's the limit here, you know what I mean? I think that we could be seeing a guy go for 14 to 1,500 yards, possibly 18 one of these big seasons, you know what I mean? There is nothing that says to me that he's going to regress at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that where he finished at last year is a expectation of where you're going to draft him at completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Which is honestly a steal. If you look at, he has 11th strength of schedule. Finished number 4 last year, 15.8 fantasy points per game. That's kind of a stud that I want on my team regardless. You know what I'm saying? Knowing he's going to be the number 1 target on a team where, they get Arthur Smith from Tennessee, who made Ryan Tannehill the efficient guy that he is, you know what I'm saying? With, if you count Corey Davis as a wide receiver or whatever,
yeah,
A.J. Brown still finished as one of the more efficient guys the last 2 years in football. So
yeah.
I think Calvin Ridley, the ceiling is like something that we can't really rank.
Yeah.
But his floor is the wide receiver 4, and that's where we got him at.
Yep. Stefon Diggs, our wide receiver 3. It makes sense. Career high in all categories. Receptions, led the league. Yards, led the league. 8 touchdowns. 127 receptions, over 1,500 yards. It's ridiculous. Only 2 games in which he had under 10 fantasy points. He also saw at least 8 targets in 14 of 16 games.
Stupid.
That's the definition of consistency. This is where essentially you would say he's the new Hopkins, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's the number 3 wide receiver. It's just the target share, everything you expect from the Buffalo Bills this season. That's where we got to rank him.
Yeah, period. I mean, you look at the transition from Minnesota to Buffalo, you know what I mean? I mean, it's the best thing since butter on bread.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Him and Josh Allen, that connection. I think Minnesota, they're kicking themselves a little bit because you got an elite talent here, but, they did end up getting Justin Jefferson, which is, good for the long haul. But looking at Minnesota, where he played there, they use him more as a deep threat. They're using this kid like Deshaun Jackson, and you go over here to Buffalo, and they start using him more for separation and, that mid-game and his route running ability, you see what happens. He leads the league in all these little categories. So, you know what I mean? Elite,
Yeah.
Elite, period. Diggs, 10 strength of schedule. I got to own him on teams, and he's there in the back half. You know what I mean? Which is crazy. This is like your ultimate. We're getting to the ultimate wide receiver ones, the elite guys. He finished number 3 at the position last year, 16.6 fantasy points per game, and you ain't going to get no better than that than the other 2 guys that we're going to say in a few minutes.
Yep. Tyreek Hill, our number 2 wide receiver. This is pretty much, he's going number 1, but we got him number 2. 15 touchdowns, 17 total touchdowns, 135 targets, 87 receptions, 1,200 plus yards. He's with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
It makes sense for him to be drafted.
Period. That's it.
So last season, only 3 games over 100 yards. But guess what? He's probably the most explosive player in the NFL. So I like Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, that is what it is. That's Tyreek Hill. You already know it. Cheetah. His speed is bar none different. It separates the game. You know what I mean? You look at, he's not even the number 1 receiving option on the team because he's so fast.
Yeah.
Kelsey's the number 1 receiving guy on that team, but he does so much for that offense. I mean, he gets open when he's not supposed to get open. However, for me, I can never rank him number 1 overall just because of knowing that, you know, he's not going to get the receptions and the receiving yards. You know what I'm saying? There's more to likely he's going to have a lot of games where he has, you know, a big touchdowns and, you know what I'm saying, big yards that absolutely just produces his numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like these nuclear weeks or whatever. But for the number 2 guy this year, Patrick Mahomes, number 1 target. They got the tackles figured out. You know what I mean? They got pros there. I think they're going to shoot it out this year. They got a lot to prove. They were in a lot of one-score games last year, and this just equals up to Tyreek Hill being utilized immensely this season.
Yeah, of course. Last season, 12 of 16 weeks, or the 15 games that he played, had a touchdown in.
That's stupid.
That's ridiculous, right? So, unreal numbers. Tyreek Hill, obvious, our wide receiver 2.
Cheetah, period. If he's there, go get him. Steal.
Davante Adams, our obvious wide receiver 1. 18 touchdowns, 150 targets, 115 receptions, 1,300 plus yards. He's going to explode. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen here with the Aaron Rodgers thing and Green Bay, all these mixed emotions going on. But I know what's one thing that's consistent. It's Davante Adams.
Yeah, period.
Finishes the wide receiver 1 in only 14 games.
In only 14 games, finished the number 1 receiver with 21.5 fantasy points per game. This has solidified the number 1 pick. You know what I mean? And if you're worried about the 18 touchdowns being a regression, you go back and look at Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson. They're all, you know what I mean? Donald Driver, these guys, James Jones. With Aaron Rodgers, they all finished with double-digit touchdowns. So I don't see it regressing that far. It is what it is, and they finna go out there and try to prove the world to this new group of receivers. And I think that thing is still stinging for Aaron Rodgers, that Brady was able to get his men and whatever he wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? And I think that they're going to go out there and beast and handle business. It's Davante Adams. You already know what it is. Wide receiver 1, period. The man is pretty much Iron Man.
Right? So that's it. Our wide receiver rankings, 1 through 12. These are the top guys that are going to produce for you this fantasy season. So, once again, if you like the video, subscribe, share, thumb, bell, all that good stuff. Comment, drop a comment. If you got another guy you want to hear about, let us know. We'll be glad to answer the question for you. So, for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott.
Godzilla.
And we out.